Welcome everyone. Today we're going to be taking a look at Decisions 9.4 as a release. We're going to be taking a bird's eye look at the 9.4 release, but if you're looking for a full breakdown of what's happening in this release, go to the documentation site and check out the 9.4 release notes. So we're going to start with breaking changes. So there's a couple here. The first one is the inbox counter is going away. I know it's nice to look at the sidebar and see that you have new assignments and need to address, but that convenience came at a cost. The thread or flow behind that counter was running continuously, causing some performance issues and impacting our updates. So we have eliminated it. However, for those of you that love having that counter on the inbox, there is a workaround. Before upgrading to version 9, you can track down the default inbox folder count flow. Once you find it, you can export it and upgrade to 9.4. After upgrading, you can re-import that flow and you can set it up to keep counting assignments for you, providing that convenient inbox counter. You can also create a new inbox count flow as a count flow. Next up, there's going to be a big change to maintenance mode. In previous versions, turning on maintenance mode would keep it active until you manually turned it off. Even restarting the system wouldn't affect it. Maintenance mode would continue running. Now, however, if you restart your instance, maintenance mode will turn off when the system comes back up. If you want maintenance mode to last through restarts, you can configure it to be persistent by adjusting the settings in your settings XML file. Next, we have some rule set issues. In older versions, upgrading to version 9 would cause rule sets to break. The good news is that this has been fixed, so you can safely upgrade to 9.4 and your rule sets will be preserved. However, for versions between 6 and 8.17, there's a chance that all the variables could disappear from your rule sets, requiring you to remap them. Why does this happen? There are various niche cases and configurations that can trigger it. It won't happen every time, but if you're upgrading from one of these versions to 9.4 and notice missing variables in the rule sets, this is likely the cause. This issue also applies to database restores, not just upgrades. Another major update is the change in how JSON deserialization works. Previously, it used a binary system, and now we've moved to a hybrid style. This change is intended to enhance performance, making serialization and deserialization faster. However, this update can cause issues for those using an SDK to read or write flows. Since the serialization mechanism has changed completely, SDKs will need to be rewritten to work with the new system. Unfortunately, this means additional work for those relying on SDKs when upgrading, but that is it for breaking changes. When it comes to features being deprecated, we have none. Everything you love is still there. So now let's talk on to the meat of this, the new features. We have quite a few, so let's go ahead and get started with it. First, we have our 4 brand new steps for message queues modules: resync message queue, shutdown message queue, pause message queue, and resume message queue. These additions should make managing your message queues much easier. Additionally, we've made several changes to the context menu. We've revamped the entire context menu as a part of this release. We've added a few actions and made significant changes in the positioning to improve user friendliness. Additionally, we removed some actions that were unnecessary for end users. One of the major changes is the addition of the new personalize action. Previously, there were multiple actions that opened dialogues for settings like look and feel, name, description, order, and homepage. Now we've consolidated these settings under a single action called personalize. When you click on this action, a new dialog opens with all the configurations in one place, reducing the number of actions on the context menu. We've also added a new column to the system activity report called queue depth. Queue depth tracks the current thread job queue count of the application. This helps in identifying any queue or thread job spikes on the platform. This serves as a tracking mechanism for monitoring the queue status in the platform. You can find this under Administration, System Tools, Event Viewer, System Activity, where the new queue depth column is located at the end. If you've been in version 9, you may have seen the entity picker when selecting a subflow within a flow, such as when dragging a step over. This feature has already been designed, but we've expanded it to more areas. For example, when running a database query and selecting a database connection from the list of folders, the old picker has been replaced with this updated picker. This new design is now implemented across multiple areas where folders are selected throughout the platform. It provides a refined experience with options organized by project dependency and a favorites tab at the top. So while it's not a brand new feature, you'll start seeing it in many more places. There's also a brand new step for the DocuSign module, Get Document Status Changes. When you use this, it returns a list of all the status changes occurring within your documents, along with timestamps. It's a nice, neat, useful update for DocuSign. There are a ton of new steps for the Google Cloud module, allowing access to storage functionality. These include Create Bucket, List Buckets, Delete Bucket, List Objects, Upload Object, Download Object, Delete Object, and Copy Object. This covers just about everything you could do with an object in Google Cloud. If you're using the Google Cloud module, keep an eye out for these updates and enjoy. There are also 4 new steps for working with Word and Excel files. You can now use these steps to lock and unlock files as needed. Simply provide the document and the password as the inputs, and the step will lock or unlock the file accordingly. Speaking of new steps, there's a new step for the SharePoint module, Get All Document step. This step won't appear by default. It will only show up after you generate a document library, and then you'll have a step that retrieves all the documents from that library. So now let's start talking about some enhancements with 9.4. As mentioned earlier, there's been many changes to the context menu. We've changed some positions, removed unnecessary actions, and added a few new actions and renamed a few. This update affects a number of entities, including folders, designer folders, data structures, case entities, and page reports. Everything within a designer folder has now a refreshed context menu. There are no major changes, just minor changes like position, removals, additions, and view updates. Earlier, the grouping of menus used to open up multiple layers. Now, most of the time, you'll see the menus opening in just 2 layers. For example, you'll see one layer, and when you hover over it, it'll expand to a second layer with no additional layers opening. This reduces the number of layers needed to access all actions. We've streamlined this to make the experience more efficient. Additionally, there have been some updates to the Active Directory steps. They now support domains, which should help everyone a little bit. Improve the advanced search reports performance. This was already implemented in the portal back in version 9.3. This table search queries the largest table in decisions data, which has caused some performance issues. Developers have improved the performance of the advanced search. The advanced search is a functionality that allows you to apply multiple filters to a report, making it easier to filter and find the accurate data you need on the platform. There's been a small change to the repository. Previously, the branches didn't have icons, which could make things a bit confusing. So now with icons added, it will be much easier to distinguish between them. You can see this under the Folders section. Azure Storage Steps now include a new timeout property. There are convenient sliders under Settings allow you to set how long the step should wait before timing out. The history activity page was previously not tracking any changes related to tags. This functionality has now been added, so anytime a tag is created, modified, deleted, it will appear in the activity report. We have a Report Designer UI refresh. This update mainly involves a reskin of the report designers. There are quite a few updates. One notable change in the design is the pills at the top, which have been updated slightly. When you click on them, they will now expand in a new way to provide information for you. Caching has been added for all filters and data fields, so when you load a report, these elements are now cached in memory. This should significantly improve performance when opening dialogues and making selections. These are 2 of the major improvements, along with some additional design updates at the top for a clearer and more user-friendly experience in the Report Designer. The Entity Picker has received more design updates, including for groups and for accounts. These updates don't change functionality, but provide a refreshed look to match the other Entity Pickers that we have in Decisions. The Entity menu has also been changed, so lots of dialogue redesigns all over in 9.4. Additionally, a new system validation for shadow tables has been introduced. Shadow tables are used when there is a change in the data type, such as switching a date field to a string. When this occurs, the system creates a shadow table to store any data that can't be converted into the new type, ensuring no data is lost during the conversion process. Many users weren't previously aware of the existence or purpose of these shadow tables. To address this, validations have been added throughout the system, including a system-wide validation and a warning message that appears when editing data structures. This warning now alerts system administrators to the presence of data in shadow tables, allowing them to decide how to manage it. From the validation, administrators also have the option to delete shadow tables if needed. There's an option to ignore the validation, though this functionality is still being confirmed. An enhancement has been made to the search bar for formulas, specifically the search bar under the function section when adding a new function to a formula. Previously, the search was case sensitive and required lowercase entries. Now it accepts uppercase as well, making it easier to use and more responsive. An all element types report located in the system folder has been updated. You can now filter by archived entities, which options to include and excluded archived items. This changes adds flexibility to the reports for easier use. New properties have been added for identity providers, including an option to omit the email scope. Sometimes the email scope can cause issues, and now there's a way to turn it off. This should be especially helpful when using OpenID. There are additional changes to message queues with the new setting for fine-tuning thread behavior and message handlers. These options allow you to set the maximum number of new threads that can be created during a high queue activity to prevent thread overload, which should enhance performance. You can also specify the number of threads that remain idle when no work is present. By enabling the setting, you can first set the number of threads that will stay idle indefinitely and then adjust the others to disappear after a set period. Customizable with a slider. This gives flexibility in handling idle threads to suit performance needs. For messaging queues, action menus will now only display actions relevant to the action queue. This is part of an ongoing work to redefine the context menus, ensuring only that necessary options are shown to improve the user experience. Additionally, properties have been added to the fetch entity step, impacting almost all entity-related steps. These properties have been grouped for consistency. Each step now has a category labeled Modified Fetch Behavior, containing similar options. The only step that wasn't impacted by this change was the Save Entity step. If you're using other entity steps, you'll notice that the properties have been reorganized. And that is what I have for you for 9.4. If you have any questions, feel free to reach out to documentation@decisions.com, support@decisions.com, or training@decisions.com. Thank you very much.